This video is all about remodeling and adding to my small SUV camp build, and with a space this small like this 2007 Ford Escape, efficient space use is critical, and there are a few places in this build that I think I can expand. Something I love about this design that I came up with previously is how easy it is to disassemble, and since nothing is directly attached to the car itself, the entire platform just slides out and you're left with a massive cavernous space, very simply. And as you can see, I've taken out the rear seats in the car, and that just gives me a lot more room. I realized there was a bit of the platform that I wasn't utilizing, so I went ahead and chopped it off. Next, I wanted to build a little cabinet under my fridge for things like plates and bowls, since I didn't really have a good place for those before, so I measured out the dimensions and cut down the pieces of 1x6. And then using this handy clamp, I pre-drilled and attached the pieces together. For the top of this cabinet, I'm using this little 2x2 foot piece of project panel I found at Home Depot, but as it was a bit expensive, I'm trying to be as precise as possible with my measurements so I don't waste any of it. And this piece of project panel fit beautifully on top of the 1x6, and so I pre-drilled and attached them together. So since I finished all the modifications to the platform itself, I went ahead and popped it back into the car. And now you can see with my dresser in place why I cut that piece of platform out is so I could fit my stove perfectly vertically right into the side here, and this is a huge improvement. And next to it, I'm going to place and arrange my cabinet that goes underneath my fridge. And now I'm going to measure and cut the door for that little cabinet. The next modification I want to make is with my power bank here, and there is a little bit of space behind and on top of it that's available, so I think I can make a sort of cabinet system to store more items. I'm just going to use this 1x6 to frame the sides of this little storage space, and then on the top is just going to be that project panel again. Attaching these pieces together, I have a sort of half table, you might say, and that's just going to sit on top of the power bank. I bought this super cheap piece of 1x2 wood that's a little rough around the edges, but I'm just going to cut this down and use this to frame a little top compartment on top of the cubby. And again, just screwing these together and placing it on top of that little half table and securing it on the bottom. And my next step is just sanding down all the wood that I've cut, and this is super important when you have a car camp build because you're going to be in close proximity to a lot of wood, and the last thing you want is to be getting splinters from everything, so make sure you sand everything down. And the parts that I can't get to with the electric sander, I'm just doing by hand. So now it's time to install all of these separate pieces, and I'm going to start with the little cabinet underneath the fridge. For the little door in front of this cabinet, I'm going to try and use Velcro to attach it, and I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work in the long term, but it seems to be functioning pretty well right now. And now it's time to install the little half table and additional storage space over the power bank. For this little storage space, I'm building a little half shelf to be able to store small items on the top and a bigger item on the bottom. Now in that cabinet in the back, I'm adding in a little bit of shelf liner on the bottom just so things like plates and bowls don't fly around when you're driving. They just stay in place a little bit better and make less rattling noises, which is essential when you're driving around. The last thing I want to build into the space is a little spot for toiletries, and so I'm building in this little container, I guess you could say, out of wood, just using that 1x2 as well as some of the project panel. And finally, I just put in my new tri-fold mattress into the bed, which is going to be much more comfortable. And I also added some fairy lights around the top of the car, which are an essential piece of any car camp build. So here's a look at all of my modifications. At the back of the car, you can see my new cabinet, which stores things like cutting boards, plates, bowls, wooden spoons, things like that are easily accessible while you're cooking, because otherwise you can't really access the things underneath where you're cooking. So this is fantastic, and on top of that is my fridge. To the left, we have my new storage for my stove, which is fantastic because before I had to go all the way to the other side of the car and reach underneath to grab my stove, so this is just super accessible and convenient. Behind the driver's seat and my power bank, we have a little bit more storage with 2 layers and a shelf in between them, and then on top of that we have more storage for toiletries and miscellaneous items. A big issue when having a camp setup in your car and driving around is that things can move quite a lot, and so having these little walls and storage spaces just allow things to stay put a lot better. On top, I have my little cubby for various toiletries that just fit in super well, are easily accessible, and don't move around while you're driving. And there's also a little hole where I can put my toothbrush to dry off and sit upright, and I'm stoked on it. It looks super nice and finished. It's really fun working on projects like this because you do have to be so efficient in a small space like this, but it also pays off huge because every little change you make has such a big impact on how easy it is to do things, and I'm stoked with these upgrades. Anyway, that's the gist of this video, just a little remodel action in the car, and if you found it interesting, please like, share, and subscribe down below, and I'll see you all next time.